When it comes to sports, trying to make a ranking system of who is the greatest of all time at any position is a rather hard thing to do. But when it comes to the NFL, doing it for players can get rather fierce. Well, in a recent ranking, Barry Sanders just was ultimately disrespected, and we're going to talk about it in this episode, folks.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, old Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. Now, as I just said in my intro no more than a few moments ago, when it comes to the matter of who is considered the greatest of all time, or who is considered an NFL, NBA, whatever the type of sport you're talking about, great, the competition is particularly fierce when you're talking about this because, again, going back to NBA, you start talking about who's better, LeBron or Michael, or you're going to throw in possibly Kobe. It doesn't matter. Depending upon whatever the situation is, the competition gets really fierce because you're going to have people that have varying opinions. But once you start factoring in fan loyalty, whether it's to a certain player, a certain franchise, whatever the case might be, you start going from a fierce competition to what I like to call knockdown, drag-out fights for some people. Now, I'm not talking about actual fisticuffs. I'm talking about words. I'm talking about opinions. And in football, this is especially true. Because let's understand something here. For us Lions fans in general, we are fiercely territorial of our players, especially the ones that we consider great ones. We've had a lot of great players over the course of the history of the Detroit Lions. Some of those players are currently on the roster right now. They're currently playing for us. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow. Those are just some of the guys that you could put on a list that would fall into that category. But I'm going to say this. You go further back in the past and you start talking about our other great players, Hall of Fame players, you disrespect them, you start going after them, you're likely to start a war of words from Lions fandom. Now, why am I talking about this? The reason why I'm talking about this is because, again, it's the offseason right now. We all know this. The offseason, there's not a lot of news that's going on as far as what teams are doing because OTAs, minicamps, those are all done. Right now, teams are in their summer breaks. They're getting ready for training camp when they come back. So right now, there's a lot of empty space. There's a lot of open narratives that people can start pushing out. One of those narratives comes from a guy by the name of Dan Pizzuta of the 33rd Team. The 33rd Team is a really popular podcast right now. We've had different Lions players that have popped up on it, whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff has popped up on there a couple of times, whatever the case is. The point of the matter is that this guy, Pizzuta, he decided he was going to release his list, his opinionated list of the top 10 all-time greatest running backs in NFL history. Now, let's understand something here. Any list that you're going to talk about all-time great running backs, we all know, whether a Lions fan or not, Barry Sanders has got to be on that list. If he's not, it's a joke of a list. Ain't nobody going to take it seriously. Because Barry Sanders is one of the greatest running backs in NFL history. But it also can be stated that it is expected that Barry Sanders should at least be in the top 3, top 2 spots. That at least should be expected. Now, whether or not it's a Lions person that's making the list, maybe Barry Sanders would be in the number 1 spot. But top 3, top 2, easily. However, though, Pizzuta disagreed with this notion. His top 3 spots did not include Barry Sanders. His top spot went to Jim Brown. His number 2 spot went to Walter Payton. His number 3 spot, LaDainian Tomlinson. And then Barry Sanders at number 4. Now, got to try and keep my cool here. To talk about Barry Sanders in comparison to Walter Payton and Jim Brown, both of these guys were great running backs. They are awesome running backs. Rest in peace to both of them. Those are guys that are awesome. Awesome guys. They were great running backs. So I can understand, even though I don't like it, I can understand why those two guys are in front of Barry Sanders. Jim Brown, honestly, in my opinion, is one of the first real great running backs in NFL history. I know there are a couple of others, but Jim Brown, that dude was a beast. From freaking 1957 to 1965, that dude was literally almost impossible to try and bring down. There's a reason why Jim Brown is considered one of the best, if not the best running back to ever play. That's why a lot of people usually put him up there on any list. The same thing is also true for Walter Payton. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm not a Bears fan. I absolutely detest the Bears, to be honest. But I recognize greatness when I see it. Walter Payton, there's a reason why the man had the nickname of Sweetness. The guy was absolutely sweet as hell to watch, and he was awesome to watch play on the field. So I can, again, understand, I may not like it, but I can understand why those two guys are at the number 1 and number 2 spot. But to have LaDainian Tomlinson over Barry Sanders, not only is that a no, that is a hell freaking no. Let's just put this in perspective, shall we? Let's take a look at the two guys' stats, side by side. I'm going to put up LT's career stats, and then I'm going to put up Barry Sanders' career stats. Here's LT's career stats. He ran the ball for 3,174 times, just under 14,000 yards, 145 rushing touchdowns for 4.3 an average a rush. He had 624 receptions, almost 5,000 receiving yards, at 7.6 an average a catch for 17 receiving touchdowns. That's a very damn solid career. That is a great career. Now let's take a look at Barry Sanders on the other hand. 3,062 rushes, so just barely over 3,000 rushes. 15,269 yards, 99 rushing touchdowns for 5 an average a rush, 352 receptions for 2,921 receiving yards, 8.3 an average a catch for 10 receiving touchdowns. Okay, I don't think I have to say this too much, but I'm going to do it anyway because, again, when I see people that do this kind of stuff and they don't do their homework, I, again, get very, very irritable. But just statistically alone, Barry Sanders has almost 2,000 more rushing yards than LaDainian Tomlinson, despite the fact that LT played one more full season than Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was in the league for 10 years. LT was in the league for 11. But also, let's think about this. If you take a look at LT over the course of his career, there was never really any particular season where he missed a lot of time due to injury. Whereas if you go to Barry Sanders, in 1993, the guy, he tore both his PCL and his MCL in his knee. He missed the last 5 games of the year due to that injury. But yet, despite that injury, despite the fact he missed 5 games in a year, he still ran for over 1,100 yards in 1993. You want to know what's a really striking comparison, though, between the two? Barry Sanders, he started 151 games for the Detroit Lions. LT, between the Jets and between the San Diego Chargers, again, LT played for 2 teams. Barry Sanders only played for 1. LT started 154. So think about that. LT has 3 more games in terms of starts, but yet Barry Sanders has almost 2,000 more rushing yards and missed 5 games in one season due to a serious set of knee injuries. Oh, and here's another little quote I like to put out there. Barry Sanders rushed for at least 1,100 yards every single season that he played. He went every single year and rushed for 1,000 yards or more. LT failed to crack 1,000 yards in 3 of his. The last 3 years he played, he did not make 1,000 yards. So think about that. Barry Sanders, 1,000 yards each year. Barry Sanders had a serious injury in 1993, missed 5 games, but yet, according to this clown, LT is better than Barry Sanders. Okay, let's keep going down this rabbit hole. Let's compare the two now in terms of their awards and accomplishments. Let's take a look at LT's awards. LT has 1 MVP award. He has 1 Offensive Player of the Year award. He has 1 Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro player, a 3-time second-team All-Pro player, 5 Pro Bowl selections, twice the NFL rushing leader, and 3 times the NFL rushing touchdown leader. Again, a pretty great set of accomplishments and awards to put on his belt. But let's take a look at Barry Sanders here now, shall we? Barry Sanders won an MVP award. He was twice the Offensive Player of the Year. He was a 6-time first-team All-Pro player. He was a 4-time second-team All-Pro player. He was a 10-time Pro Bowl player. He was 4 times the NFL rushing leader, and he was the rushing touchdown leader once. Again, just look at the difference there. Apart from the fact that LT has a Man of the Year award, and the fact that LT had the rushing touchdown leader award more often than Barry Sanders did, Barry Sanders destroys LaDainian Tomlinson. Think about it. The only other thing that those two share is that both of them have an MVP award. But otherwise, consider this. Barry Sanders was an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler every single damn year he played. He was a first-team All-Pro 60% of the time that he played. He was a second-team All-Pro 40% of the time that he played. And he was a Pro Bowl player every single year. The man didn't miss a beat any single year. Despite the fact that he got injured in 1993, he was still considered an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl player. Think about that. Furthermore, LT... I'm going to tell you this right now. LT was only the rushing leader champ 2 times in the NFL. Barry Sanders did that 4 times, double what freaking LT did. And on top of that, Barry won the Offensive Player of the Year award twice to LT's only once. Now, that's stats, that's awards and accomplishments. But let's finally consider who these 2 great running backs had to play with. Let's consider the quarterback that they had, because the quarterback is the biggest part of an offense. Barry never had a great, solid quarterback to play with. Think about it. Who were Barry Sanders' starting quarterbacks? Eric Kramer, Scott Mitchell, Rodney Peete, and Charlie Batch primarily. Let's just call it for what it is. None of those guys are really all that impressive. The best quarterback out of that bunch was Eric Kramer. And Eric Kramer was only there for a handful of games in comparison to the rest of them all? Who did LT have to work with? Oh, that's right. Doug Flutie, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, and Mark Sanchez. I'm going to tell you this right now. Even Mark Sanchez is better than most of the quarterbacks that Barry Sanders had to work with. But Doug Flutie, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, I would take all those guys easily over any of the quarterbacks that we had. Because think about it. Drew Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback. Phillip Rivers, he's a fringe guy. You could possibly make an argument for the Hall of Fame, even though he has no Super Bowls, even though he was not that good in the playoffs. But still, very prolific passer. Why is this important? The reason why it's important is because having a good quarterback can take pressure off of a running back to perform. Think about this. LT had, like I said, a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, and he had Phillip Rivers. Both of those guys were great quarterbacks. And he had him for virtually the majority, if not all of his career, except for the last 2 years he played. Plus, on top of that, consider this. LT was under a system with Marty Schottenheimer from 2002 to 2006, where, what was Marty Schottenheimer known for? He was known famously for Marty Ball. Marty Ball as a system is one that loves to run the ever-living hell out of the football. So think about that. LT had great quarterbacks to work with. He had a coach that loved to run the football, which meant he got more opportunities than almost anywhere else to run the football. So, wait a minute here. Despite all those things that were going for LT, he was less productive overall as a runner. He has less accolades as far as awards. And, like I said, he had a better coach that would allow him to run the ball. He had better quarterbacks. But yet, Barry Sanders still produced more than him. But yet, according to Pizzuta, the reason why he has LT in front of Barry Sanders is because LT was a great overall running back. He could catch, he could run, he was elusive, he had power, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and also he mentions the fact that LT has the most touchdowns scored in a single season by a player. Okay, that's great, grand, and glorious. But you're missing all these other facts, Mr. Pizzuta, that factor heavily into why Barry Sanders should be much higher up on this list. Or you could make an argument with, hey, whether it's Walter Payton or Jim Brown, but Barry Sanders should easily be number 3. There's no way in hell LT should be above freaking Barry Sanders. No chance in hell. In fact, I'm going to say this right now. LT being in front of some of the other guys that are on that list, whether it's Emmitt Smith, whoever else, that in and of itself is also insulting because it's like, wait a minute here. LT never won a Super Bowl. LT, while he was a prolific runner, he also had a lot of great help around him, but yet still could not go to the big one, still could not win the big one. With Barry Sanders, he never had a great quarterback. So for me, it's like, okay here. Barry Sanders, 1990s, was the offense for the Detroit Lions. Having LT in front of Barry Sanders, where LT had a lot of other help on his team, in front of Barry Sanders, who had virtually no other help for the majority of his career, was the reason why the Lions got to the conference championship game primarily in 1991. That right there is a huge problem. And again, I continue to take a look at this from just the simple perspective. Barry Sanders was productive every single year of his career. He didn't miss a beat at any point. LT pretty much fell off towards the end where he was an afterthought. That's not to say he wasn't a great running back, but by the time LT got done to the end of his career, the last 3 years he played, he was not the same running back anymore. Barry Sanders was the same running back from when he started his career all the way to when he ended it. That right there is the definition of greatness, and that's why Barry Sanders, along with all the other points I mentioned, should be well in front of LT. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to put this episode out there because, again, I'm fiercely territorial about my Lions. And when I see a wrong like this, I cannot not say something. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. I also encourage y'all to do one of these three things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, I highly encourage y'all to subscribe, but I also encourage y'all to do one of these three things. I also encourage y'all to do this, pardon me. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page as well. I also encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. I don't care where the hell you share it, just share it. It helps the channel grow, it helps the channel spread, it helps give us much more of a longer reach among people. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the content. I hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. And with that being said, God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.